all of the organizations that are good at meaningful innovation on a repeated basis and meaningful transformation, this is what they do. And what we mean by transformation, there's the big T transformation, like we're done, we've transformed. That never really happens. But the little t transformations that can be just you individually in your job, or it can be within your group, or whatever your sphere of influence is, those are the little t transformations that add up to a big T. Make sense? Cool. The first one is a strategic narrative. Now, when you start a new company, what do? They hand you the white binder. It's always a white binder. I don't know why. And what is one of the first things that they talk about? It is how your company got formed. And it's almost the same story. There was this opportunity or challenge, and this person or persons, through a series of luck and also grit, was able to overcome, and boom, we exist. And that story could have happened 700 years ago or last month. It's the same story. Now, those are really important. But what's missing almost always is there's no story about the future of where we're going. So we did all this, and now we're here, and now we're kind of in the paper business. That's not terribly inspiring. But then to create a strategic narrative is about where you're going. So let me give you an example. A real strategic narrative would have characters, conflict, and a narrative arc. And it's easily communicated, and its mission is understood deeply, and it resonates. So there's an apocryphal story. I don't know if this actually happened or not. But President Kennedy, after his famous moonshot, so much talk about moonshots, but the moonshot speech, he visited one of the NASA facilities, and as presidents like to do, was hanging out with a janitor and said, there was a guy mopping the floor. He said, "So what do you do here, sir?" He said, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon." Right? That is someone who really understands the strategic narrative of the company or the organization. That is what we all strive for. Now, if you were to ask anybody in your organization what they were doing, would it be that clean? No way. So that's where we need to get, is we need to use characters, conflict, and narrative arc, which I'll talk about a little bit more, to get to that cleanness and that high degree of clarity without a lot of certainty, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So high clarity, low certainty. The second is breaking the bottlenecks. If I hear one more person talk about how important it is to make something for the customer, I'm going to lose my mind. And the reason why I hate that so much is not wrong, is because there's this embedded belief that if you make something that's customer-centric, that somehow the organization will magically align to it and it will make it through. That doesn't happen. Have you seen that happen? Where it just didn't make through because it wasn't politically expedient, someone didn't like what the shirt you were wearing that day, or whatever, and it just didn't make it through. Your first customer is whoever you need to convince to get your idea move forward. It just is. And there's not enough focus put on breaking these bottlenecks along the way, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the last thing are these future KPIs, or these new ways of measuring success. You have to have new quantitative measures to understand what's working or not working. Everyone knows the story about Kodak. They invented the first digital camera. One of the big reasons they did not move forward is they were using old metrics, the mature metrics of a mature business, and comparing it to a nascent business. They didn't just invent it and then walk away. They spent years and years and millions of dollars developing the digital camera. But they ultimately didn't go forward with it because it was never going to win that battle. So lastly, what are the 3 no's to innovation? One is no to mature metrics. I've said that a bunch of times today. Whatever you're doing to measure your mature business, don't use that on something new. It will never win. When you're building something new and it's working, resist the urge to just dump a ton of money on it. That also makes it too big and can crush it with too much focus and too much money. And thirdly, say no to mature metrics. Don't use your existing IT infrastructure. Don't use whatever financial system if you can. Try to keep it apart so it can continue to grow and develop. And then people always ask me, what are the skills of a transformative team? Well, there are these 3 things that have to come together. One is you need to have people on your team that have what we call a negative capability. So these are people that are comfortable, really comfortable, working in an uncertain, ambiguous environment. That is a very hard skill. Now, the next one is having chaos pilots, people that can make structure out of chaos. And these aren't necessarily the same people, negative capability and the chaos pilot. And then thirdly, and I would say this is the most important, every single person on my team, back then and now, everyone has a written personal story, a personal narrative of how what they're doing in their life and what they want and where they want to go. And they can choose to share that with me or their boss or whoever, but then what they're doing is perfectly aligned to where we're going. And I'll even have people come to me and say, I'm only going to be here for 18 months, and my job is to go work at Google X. Cool. Then I can position you in ways that you're doing projects with Google X, and you can do that, and then we can get you going. Those people that are fully aligned are the most productive and the happiest and most wonderful employees. Does that make sense? And if we have a personal transformation narrative that's tied to the companies, then we can do amazing, magical things without a lot of certainty. And lastly, one of the most important things is having uncommon partnerships. So this is any organization that you wouldn't normally work with. If you say Lowe's and NASA, people are going to go, huh? That's how you know you're on the right track. And then partnership is really, really different than the way most organizations work. A partnership means that I am willing to tell you when things aren't working, things I like and things I don't, because I care enough to do that, just like your life partner or your spouse would do. Thank you so much.